Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and I just got back from the new film, The Purge. In 2022, the United States has been reborn because it has instituted a thing called The Purge. And The Purge is every year they have a 12-hour period where murder and all laws that are illegal are suddenly legal, and there's no prosecution because it's The Purge and nothing counts. And because of this, or supposedly because of this, the United States has an amazing economy, and crime is at an all-time low, and unemployment is at 1%. This film centers on a family of four, with their father, played by Ethan Hawke, sells security systems, because that's a booming industry now, because people want to be secure if like anyone could murder anyone during the purge. Then they put the security system down for the annual purge until their young son sees a man screaming for help outside of their house, and so he decides to let him in, and then find out that people are actually looking for him and demand they let him out so they can purge on him by these like yuppies. This one guy who's kind of like a super Ivy League yuppie kind of guy who really wants them to let out this veteran, and so Ethan Hawke has to find this veteran, bring him out so that they won't eventually come in and kill his family, which they most certainly will do if they do not get this guy in time to purge. The Purge is very influenced by John Carpenter, specifically two movies, Escape from New York, which you can guess from the title card at the beginning of the film when it tells you how this is an alternate future where this thing called the Purge has happened, much like at the beginning of Escape from New York, where it tells you how New York has become a giant prison. And also Assault from Precinct 13. This director actually helped write the remake, so he's very familiar with Assault on Precinct 13. Assault on Precinct 13 has become very influential as of late because of films like Attack the Block, Dread, and The Raid: Redemption. This movie is actually semi-entertaining, but it's entertaining in a very exploitation B-movie way. It's like if someone took a John Carpenter idea, if you took out the love of film and directed it more like a pure B-exploitation movie, rather than have all the Western elements in there that John Carpenter usually put in. And it feels like the director of this, James DeMonico, he seems to get the thrill of Carpenter, and he seems to be able to get the style of it, but he's not getting the heart, he's not getting the soul, he's not getting the meaning behind it. Really, the Purge, the whole idea of the Purge, isn't really expressed very well. As I have read the Wikipedia page, I understand what the four founding fathers are, which are actually apparently corporations. I did not know that in the film. I kept wondering, like, who are these people? What are kind of some of the aspects of the Purge? They don't really get into it. It's more of an excuse to do all these cool action stuff. And I think if you look at Carpenter's stuff when he's doing social commentary or social satire, he uses it more as an excuse to talk about these things. And even though you could say Escape from New York uses the idea of New York as a prison as an excuse to do this cool kind of Western movie, it still works and gets into more of the satire of it. And The Purge isn't interested in that for whatever reason. That seems to be often a thing that I've noticed with a lot of films that really should have satire in them, but the directors seem to be devoid of it. If you look at the recent Total Recall remake, or even Hunger Games, where you're supposed to really have some satire in there, but they're not playing it up, they're not playing with it really, they're just using it as the basis point. It's like they're not understanding what made these previous action films and Carpenter and Verhoeven movies that had satire in them work. And it's because they were kind of like these postmodern B-movie masterpieces. A lot of times when you have these newer directors try to do the same things that Carpenter or Verhoeven or Spielberg or any of those guys did, it's not working as well as because they are clearly not as film literate as those original directors were, and they don't understand what's going into those films. Escape from New York is very much a Western film wrapped up in a B sci-fi comic booky movie. Same with Assault on Precinct 13 is literally his riff on a part of Rio Bravo. And I don't think he gets that. I don't think this guy gets that. The Purge, they often talk about how the poor are basically hunted on the Purge. It's basically a way to get rid of society's unwanted. And we're only seeing it from this rich community who has this great security system. They have this awesome concept. They're not really doing anything with it. It starts off with like a thinly veiled, like bad B-movie character development, which never really works. They're dumb family traditions around the dinner table that totally just come off as fake and phony. I never feel like those parts connect with me as an audience member. What I see later when things get violent and exciting, then I'm far more connected and it feels more real. It's a total sci-fi premise, but the Purge and all that stuff felt more real than their crappy conversation at the dinner table, which felt totally fake. Carpenter is a director who's been ripped off a lot of times. Take like that whole era of Halloween ripoffs. The reason Halloween Halloween is still the best one of that whole era is because he was really a fan of filmmaking and he really liked all these different ideas. And if you look at some of the better directors, or even like a Tarantino, the reason he's great is he's playing in genre. The reason Carpenter's great is he's playing in genre. Even Spielberg with Raiders of the Lost Ark. And Purge just is kind of taking all these things at face value and not understanding how and why these things are postmodern. It's just kind of liking Assault on Precinct 13 and not really understanding the theory behind it. You get a very kind of emptier movie that's trying to act like it's more. And I think it's trying to say something about politics and man with violence. It kind of lets go of it and doesn't dwell on it, so it's not annoying. That's the good thing about The Purge, is that it doesn't really go into the things it can't tackle clearly. I kind of don't mind when a stupid movie realizes it's stupid and tries to make the best of it. And really for the last 2/3 of this movie, it really does make the best of it. It makes the best of what it's trying to do by being very exciting and keeping things moving. Now, it's so stupid that you don't know where certain people are. Like the daughter runs off at a certain point and I'm like, where is she again? The guy they let into their house, the veteran, he just disappears. He's a very underdeveloped character, and a character that you could really have a lot of fun with, since he's the whole reason this whole thing fucking happened. But they focus way too much on the family and the mom and Ethan Hawke. It does bring up more questions than it answers. I mean, if all laws are kind of legal for 12 hours, are there like really cool, let's do lots of drug parties with like tight security somewhere? Are there other crimes going on? If you're gonna have a cool concept with it, play with it. Don't just let it lie there. Learn from Verhoeven and learn from Carpenter. Don't just take them at face value. They weren't style directors. You know, that's the thing about it that a lot of these people are missing. When you don't understand it, you get emptier, vapid movies. And this is an emptier, vapid movie because of it. It's a fun, emptier, vapid movie. If you're someone who's just gonna watch a movie for face value and not think of the mechanics of it and the influences and theory and things like that, you might really, you kind of like this movie because it's actually semi-entertaining. You'll probably acknowledge how stupid it is, but if you start going into the theory of it and like the influences behind it, what influenced it, it falls apart. And it doesn't help that, seriously, like we've had 3 great movies, Attack the Block, Dread, and The Raid, that are all influenced by Assault on Precinct 13, and then The Purge comes along real late to the party and way worse and doesn't really understand the mechanics of it. It's both not a great movie, and standing in the shadows of those giants, it looks rather meek and silly. So if you have seen The Purge and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.